Brought to you by the Ramsey Network app. Download for content that keeps you motivated today. This idea that the American dream is dead, this hopelessness that is pervading out there. What do you see about the American dream? What's your feeling about that? Because you're doing a whole lot of politics right now.
Yeah.
That's what you do, obviously. But I mean, at this moment when we're taping this, you're traveling, stumping, going state to state, working with the politicians out there. You think we're done?
No, and I don't think we're remotely done. I think that the ingratitude that it demonstrates to suggest that the American dream is dead in a time of unique prosperity in human history, where the poorest people in our society have the best technologies available to them, literally in human history, where you have a magic machine in your pocket that you dial, you hit a button, and a good arrives at your door for a cheap price inside of 24 hours, and you're sitting there going, the dream is dead. I mean, we have these things that are time machines. They're called airplanes. Fly to other places on Earth and spend like 5 minutes there, and you realize just how much the American dream is not dead. And I think that politicians on all sides of the aisle, this does make me angry. I think politicians on all sides of the aisle have an interest in lying to the American people about this, because there's this mentality that if I tell you that the American dream is dead, then only I can save you. Only I have the ability to come in and rescue you from this crisis that has been created for you. When the reality is, the steps toward success in a free society are the same as they always were. Take responsible action. Go get an education. Go get a job. Make smart financial decisions. Make a smart decision about your family. You know, the entire entertainment arena is geared towards stories of people overcoming obstacles that are very often made by them. You know, the reality is, you know, when people say, what's your life story? My life story is that I had the ultimate privilege, 2 amazing parents. And then I made a series of what I think are rational, calculated decisions, and it worked out well. That's my life. There's not all that much that's like super fascinating about that. There are obstacles you have to overcome along the way, things that you don't expect. But this sort of idea that you can take all the right actions and that there is no correlation between that and success is such a lie, and it's a malicious lie, and it teaches people not to take the actions. It enervates them. It makes them feel like if I do all the right things, there's no point to it. So what's the point of doing? Because doing the right thing is actually harder than doing the wrong thing. And I think politicians lie about this all the damn time. I think it's ugly. I think it's hideous. I think that it kills the American spirit. The American people are a people of pioneers. That's what we are. That's why we all like Westerns, right? We're a pioneering people. We're a bunch of people who came from Europe or from Asia or from wherever, but at the very beginning from Europe.
To get away from restrictions.
To get away from restrictions into a place that was far less secure, right? Into a continent that was totally uncultivated and where you had the chance of being killed by disease or the environment or the natives at any moment. And then that wasn't enough. They started crossing mountains to go to more of these uncultivated places and facing more hardships and more stresses. And then you have new waves of immigrants who are coming from more secure places where there is a guarantee of you being able to grow up where your parents grew up and going to a place where you don't speak the language, where you don't know anything. And I think that's the story of virtually everybody who's in the United States right now, or at least huge percentages of it, like parents or grandparents or great-grandparents who at some point abandoned the place where they were more secure to come to a place where they were far less secure for the opportunity. Are you telling me that my kids have less opportunity in America today, in 2024, than my great-grandparents did when they showed up in like 1907, not speaking a word of English, and get off the boat? And by the way, no real welfare programs, no giant social safety net. And the idea was you learn English and you do the work and then you will get ahead. This arrogance that we are the most victimized generation. Like what are you even saying? What are you talking about? By what metric are you the most victimized generation? That sounds harsh because people kind of cherish that sense of victimization because it throws the responsibility on somebody else. But you know, first law of good management is look in the mirror, not through the window, right? First law is if there's a problem and you look through the window at the thing that is responsible for the thing that's making you miserable, you're not going to solve the problem. If you look in the mirror, even if it's true that you can't solve it, if you look in the mirror, you better take the steps to at least try to solve it first.
Control the controllables.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. And most people are focusing on all the things they can't control. And that's why they're so desperate for that politician to fix their life. And also the gap between surviving and thriving has changed. The spectrum has changed. Back in our parents' and grandparents' days, it was literally survive. Put a roof over your head, food on the table. Now we have a different problem where they go, well, I want the American dream today in my own way, and I want to shortcut it. I want a house now. I want a car now. I want to have all my dreams now. Is that part of the problem? Is that we've shortcut it with debt and other bad solutions?
That for sure is true. And it's also the fascinating statistic about how many Americans have moved. And the number of Americans who are moving now is lower than at any time in modern American history. Americans are basically staying where they were, even though moving is actually much easier than it was 40, 50 years ago. And my parents were transplants to a couple different locations, right? They started off in Chicago, they moved to Boston to go to college, and then they end up in Los Angeles, and now they're in Florida, right? I spent my entire life in LA. It came a point where it was not sustainable anymore. We moved our company to Nashville, and we moved to Florida, right? This sort of idea, it's not just I want a house and I want a car. It's I want a house and I want a car in precisely the area I want the house and the car. And if I can't get that.
And the size of house. I mean, we can go back to your parents' story that they stayed in 2,400 square feet until just a couple years ago.
Yes.
And started with you in 1,100 feet.
Yes.
Which I started in 1,100 feet. Now, I'm older than you by 25 years, but still, I mean, and that was California real estate, so super expensive because they were in L.A. at the time. But still, this idea that 1,100 square feet, you've got to be kidding me. Under what planet should I live there? I'm 21 years old.
Well,
why would I live in 1,100 feet?
My parents bought a house for $8, and I'm like, go look at that house. You don't want to live there.
You boomers don't understand. You bought your houses for a basket of strawberries.
Exactly.
You don't understand. You don't grasp what's really going on.
So I think our expectations and standards have shifted to be impossible.
I think that also because people have, a brain quirk that makes them think that if something is what it is today, it was always like that. They look at people who live in giant houses and they think that person was always rich.
Right.
I get this crap all the time, right? I mean, it's like, oh my God, you must have grown up rich. I mean, you're very wealthy now, which means you grew up, right, you're a trust fund baby. And I think to myself, no, where are you possibly getting that? That doesn't even, what? In fact, I'll tell you, the number of people who are truly, generationally wealthy that I know, the number of them who are trust fund babies is vanishingly small. Like the richest people that I know, and I know the richest people, right? I mean, like Elon, you're talking about people, in Silicon Valley, these, virtually none of them grew up trust fund babies.
Right.
A huge number of them grew up actually really poor, or at the very least middle class. And then they made a bunch of good decisions. I mean, again, for all of us, we all have these stories, right? When I got started in my career and I was writing for free. I'd write for free just to get my stuff out there.
Yep.
And my wife and I remember driving to the local Republican club in Orange County to find a bunch of 80-year-old women, and by a bunch I mean 15, and then sell books out of the back of my car at $20 a pop. And if we came away with $200, that was an amazing day. And everyone has those stories.
It's exactly what we did. That's why we have the trunk of a car out here in the lobby with books in it, because that's how it started. And the psalm over it, don't despise small beginnings.